Hello, everybody. My name is Olamide, incoming medical student starting this summer of 2021. And this video is going to be how much I spent applying to medical school. Let's get started. So first things first, let's talk about my time. It took me about 6 years to be able to get into medical school. The first 4 years were in undergrad, taking all of my prerequisite courses. You need to take your biologies, your chemistries, organic chemistries, psychology, sociology, English, physics. Yeah, some schools definitely require a lengthy list of prerequisites. So it took me about 4 years to complete all of that. After I graduated college, I took 2 gap years where I worked various medical jobs as like a medical assistant and a clinical research coordinator. And after all of that, I was able to get into medical school. Next thing is the MCAT. The MCAT itself is about, at the time of filming is $320. Luckily, I was able to get my sweet and beautiful and amazing mother to cover those fees for me. Thank you so much, Mom. But it's not about just taking the MCAT. Studying for the MCAT is its own journey. If you've studied for the MCAT, you know this, and it is a pricey journey at that. The first thing that I had to get was the Kaplan books. It's about 7 books in one, and it covers all of the subjects that are going to be on the MCAT. And those Kaplan books are about $171.99. But luckily, I did have a friend from high school who had just taken the MCAT, and she gave me all of her Kaplan books. So that was just really amazing and kind. So thank you for that. The next thing that I had to get was UWorld. UWorld is an online subscription where it's basically about 2,000 questions of Q banks, questions that cover MCAT style type questions. So it's really helpful. The amount of practice questions you can do, the better. Like practice questions are very necessary for the MCAT. So I felt like UWorld was a really good subscription to get, but it is not cheap. It is $339. Isn't that crazy? Like that one of the resources for studying for the MCAT is more expensive than the MCAT itself. Like doesn't even make sense to me, but whatever. But luckily I was able to get a mentor to cover those fees for me, so I did not have to pay that as well. Next thing is Wyzant. Wyzant is this tutoring app, and I actually tried out 3 different tutors, and each time was like $50. And after trying out 3 different tutors, I just could not justify continuously paying $50 every session. Like, I'm sorry, everything else is already so expensive, so I decided not to go the tutor route after 3 sessions. But if you feel like you do really well with a tutor, it may be a really great investment. I definitely have seen tutors that were less than $50, but yeah, that's just what I did. If I went to do it again, I probably would have just saved my money over there. Next thing are flashcards. I went to Walmart, just got those thick index cards. I think it cost me about $3, and I quickly realized that I was just forgetting my flashcards, or they were getting really dingy and old pretty quickly, and yeah, I had to use something better. So I ended up getting the app Anki, which is a flashcard app that you can get on your phone or on your laptop. And what I love about Anki, it's kind of like Quizlet, but it's better. One thing I don't like about Quizlet is that sometimes I'll see a card and I'm like, okay, this is super easy, like I don't need to see this every day. And then sometimes I'll have cards that are really hard and I need to see them more often. So Anki really does all of that calculation for you. If there's an easy card that I don't need to see every day, it's gonna push it for like 4 days or 5 days from now. But if there's a card that I'm often getting wrong, it's gonna show me those cards a little bit more often. And that's what I like. It's all about active recall, and I felt like it was really helpful trying to memorize those formulas, or the like amino acids. I felt like it was really good. So Anki, $30. Paid that myself. Next thing is a whiteboard that I got from Walmart for $18. I felt like the whiteboard was really helpful when it came to drawing out all the chemical structures and all the amino acids and all the glycolytic pathways that you have to know as well. So, and plus just like being able to write it and really teach it to myself or teach it to somebody else, I felt like was really helpful. It was a pretty large whiteboard. Now it's just kind of hanging out in my room, just collecting dust. But for the time of studying for the MCAT, I thought that it was really helpful, and I'll probably use it again when I'm in medical school. Next thing comes from the AAMC. The AAMC are the people who make the MCAT exam, and so they have their own like practice materials as well. They have this entire prep bundle that has like practice exams, Q bank questions, flashcards, like formula sheets. It has like all these really good things that are helpful, but like I said, it is also pretty expensive. It's about $268, but I was able to save $147 because I had another friend who had just taken the MCAT, so she had all of these resources that hadn't yet expired. So I was able to use those from her and then just buy the ones that she didn't have. So I just had to buy like one of the practice exams, I believe a Q bank, and then like one other thing. So that was really amazing. I don't think you're supposed to be sharing your AAMC resources with people, but $268 is quite a good price to pay. So I'm sorry, that was just something that I had to do to be able to afford to apply to medical. Next thing is my iPad. Yeah, I had to buy an entire iPad to study for this, because before I was using my laptop, which I used for all of undergrad, but it was just getting really old and dingy, and it was really slow. And studying for the MCAT is already stressful enough, so having to operate on a laptop that was hanging on for its last life was just not fun. So I decided to go on Facebook Marketplace, and I found a really sweet woman who was selling her basically brand new iPad with the case and the keyboard and the pen. The whole thing was $1,000, and I don't know, I felt like I was saving some coins there, so I decided to buy it. Best purchase I made thus far. I was also able to use it for interviews since I had virtual interviews, and yeah, I felt like the iPad was really useful. Probably some way cheaper options than getting an Apple iPad, but yeah. So that was everything that I had to spend for applying for the MCAT. Next thing is my application. The first thing I had to get were my transcripts. My transcripts cost me about $59.25. It's a little bit more expensive than what other people pay, but that's because I went to 2 different colleges, so I had to get my transcripts from those 2 different schools. And I also applied to allopathic schools, MD schools, and osteopathic schools, DO schools, so which have 2 completely different application systems. So not only did I have to get those 2 applications from the 2 different schools, but I had to pay to send them to 2 different systems. So yeah, that in total cost me about $59.25. Now we get into the application itself, you know, putting on my name, my address, my personal statements, my activities, all of those good stuff. Like I said, I use 2 different systems, the MD system and the DO system. The MD system uses AMCAS, and I did apply to about 26 MD schools. Well, at least I sent my primary application to that many schools, and that cost me $1,100.13. Yikes. Yup, that was a lot of money. And so once I paid that amount of money to send it to 26 schools, each of those 26 schools now have their own application that they send back to you, and you have to fill out. And of course, you have to pay to send it back out to them, which is insane. So I basically have to spend like almost like $200-300 to just apply to one school. It literally doesn't make any sense. But I only ended up doing 20 of those secondary applications, so I didn't apply to about 6 of those schools that I originally planned to. And to send 20 secondary applications, it came out to be $1,800.15. But I was able to save about $200 along the way, because once I got to the end of these secondaries, I started reaching out to schools to see if anybody was willing to waive it for me. I was basically like, hey, I really want to apply to your school, but like your secondary fees are very expensive. Like, is there any way you can reduce it or waive it? And only 2 schools said yes, which is great because I was able to save $200. So shout out to those schools. It's funny because they didn't even end up giving me an interviews, but at least like it really cost me not too much to apply, so I appreciate that. Next is my primary application to the DO schools, which uses a system called ACOMAS. So to apply to 11 DO schools, it cost me $794. And then I sent a secondary application to 10 of those schools, which cost me $580. Next thing I had to pay for was Grammarly. Grammarly is this, I don't know if it's an app or like a subscription type of thing, but it basically edits all of your papers. So anytime I had to write any essays or secondary anything, I would just put it through Grammarly and it checks for any type of spelling errors, grammar errors. And I felt like that was incredibly helpful because I could only bug my boyfriend so many times to keep reading the same essay. So I felt like using Grammarly was a really great source, but of course it wasn't cheap. It is $30 a month for Grammarly, which is insane. So I really tried to do all of my secondary applications in a 1 month span, just so that I wouldn't have to pay more money to keep my Grammarly subscription. And the last thing I had to pay for in regards to just the application process was Casper. So Casper is like another platform. It's basically another exam you have to take, and it basically tests the ethical standards of a applicant. So they give you all of these scenarios of these ethical dilemmas going on, and then they ask you as the applicant, like, what would you do if you were in this situation, type of thing. And there's no score, there's no report on it. You literally just answer what you answer, and then they send that to all of your schools. So about 11 of the schools that I applied to, MD and DO schools, required it. So that cost me about $132 to. Now we are at the interviews. So the first thing I had to get for an interview was this ring light, which I am filming with right now. I got it on wish.com for about $30. You know, I think it's a pretty good durable ring light, so I felt like it was a really good purchase. Plus I can also use it for filming videos, so not too bad. Next thing was a white button up, which I did not have, so I had to go to Target and I got one for $22. But also my sister cashed at me that money to buy it, so I did appreciate that. So thank you, sis. And then last thing were my pantsuit. I wore a brown one and a black one, and both of those were hand-me-downs. The brown one was one that my mom used to wear back in the day, and then the black one was from one of my sisters. So yeah, I am so thankful that all of the interviews were virtual this year. I cannot even fathom having to add in plane costs and driving fees and hotel stays to this calculation, because I honestly just don't even think I would have been able to afford it, which is a shame because I don't even think I would have been able to end up at the school that I'm starting at this summer, because I don't know if I would have been able to afford to go to that interview. Isn't that insane? Yeah, so thankfully, all of my interviews were virtual this year, and I think that was like one of the best things that came out of this entire fiasco of applying to medical school during COVID times. But that is everything. The grand total for everything I spent applying to medical school comes out to be $5,675.75. Yes, it cost me a little over $5,000 to apply to medical school. That is such an insane amount when I actually sit down and look at it, because I had no idea. I felt like everything was kind of spaced out, because it does take a long time to like go through the entire application. So you're not really thinking about how much you're spending. But you know, I was working a full-time job at that point, so I was just putting parts of my paychecks towards it. And also, like you can see, I had friends and mentors and family members who were willing to cut some costs for me as well. And just by reaching out to people, I was able to save $1,200. So reaching out to people was really helpful. I'm really thankful for the people who wanted to help me along the way. But honestly, if you were in my position and you also applied to medical school and you spent less money than I did and you didn't qualify for the fee assistance program, please like share down below what your tricks and methods were in cutting costs, because this is a very expensive journey, not just applying, but going to the school. And it's weird because I won't really get that return on investment for like, who knows, like another like 5 years. So yeah, that is how much it costs for me to apply to medical school. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it useful or helpful, make sure to share it with a friend who might need it as well. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and comment down below how your day is going, all right? I hope it's going well. All right, I'll catch you guys in my next one. Bye.